It was summer vacation. 7 am. On a Saturday. The sun had barely crested the horizon. The last thing I expected was Johnny, sunglasses holding back sun-bleached hair, with that same shit-eating grin. Same glittery, almost manic eyes. Maybe I was still dreaming. I blinked. My cousin was still there, bathed in sunlight, vodka in one hand, a phallic-shaped pool float under his arm. Sunflower shirt and khakis, socks tucked into sandals. Johnny Vanderbilt was a sleep paralysis demon with impeccable style. I found my voice, scratchy and wrong, tangled on my tongue. "Johnny," I said, shifting from one foot to the other, already uncomfortable. I already wanted to shut the door. "It's 7 am. "Is that Johnny?" Mom's voice bled from the kitchen. "Nope," I lied, jamming the door under his foot when my cousin tried to come in. "Amazon." Johnny's smile widened. He started forwards and I stumbled back. "Oh, come on, it's our annual game of hide and seek." I blocked his way. "We played that when we were kids. We are 16 now." Johnny cocked his head. "It's tradition, dear cousin." "A tradition we made when we were 7, I said. Johnny raised a brow. "Fine." He stepped back out of the sun, his features bleeding into clarity. "Kids at school like to call my cousin a sun god. They weren't wrong. Cherub-like hair, piercing green eyes and freckled cheeks, not to mention a smile that was annoyingly contagious, made him everything a parent would want in a child. I, on the other hand, was. I was smaller, with crooked teeth, dark brown curls, and eyes that couldn't decide whether they wanted to be brown or yellow. It was hard to believe we were related. While Johnny was at the top of all of his classes, spoke 6 languages, and was already set to attend Harvard, I was definitely going to be repeating 10th grade. Not that I cared, I wasn't finishing high school. I don't use the word lightly, but I actually despise my cousin. Maybe that was why I tried to slam the door in his face. I smiled my best crooked grin, courtesy of practicing in the mirror every night before bed. Smiling was always hard. Smiling was pretending, and pretending was exhausting. But pretending also got me through another day. With a wave, I tried to shoot Johnny away, but in pure Johnny fashion, he went on strike, dropping onto the patio and folding his arms. "Well, I'm officially in protest," he pouted. "I want to talk to your brother." I wasn't falling for it. "He's sick," I lied, "stomach flu." "Lizbeth Vanderbilt," Mom called from the kitchen, "don't be rude to your cousin." Footsteps sounded behind me, and Mom appeared, bright-eyed with a wide smile. "Johnny," she greeted him, and I let that resentment simmer. Mom didn't even try to hide her favoritism. "Please pay no attention to Lizbeth. She's grumpy today." Mom marched back inside, and after shooting me a knowing grin, Johnny squeezed through the door, pool float and vodka in tow. "Oh wow, your house is so cool," he said, admiring the chandelier looming over us in the foyer. I ignored him. When we were kids, I took pride in running around Mom's beach house, dragging my cousins along for the ride. Lately, I preferred them at a distance. Johnny kicked off his sandals, marveling at the exact same painting he'd marveled at last summer. For someone so intelligent, his memory was laughable. He made the exact same comments. "Your house is so big, and how many floors do you have again?" I answered robotically. "Thanks, 4, I've already told you." He lagged behind me, ducking into each room. "Hey, so, what was with you last summer?" I kept walking, keeping my gaze fixated on the beams of sunlight filtering through the blinds. I paused for a moment. New blinds. Purple, Mom's favorite color. Walking down the foyer hallway had become a habit. Every morning without fail, I checked each window, each vase, each camera subtly attached to the ceiling. "I don't remember," I said, moving on, though I made a mental note to remember the blinds. Johnny stepped in front of me, arms folded. "I mean, you and your bro totally flaked on us." Something in his expression softened. "Hey, are you okay?" He studied me, lips curled. "Did something happen?" I hesitated, tongue in knots. "No," I said. I smiled until my jaw ached. "Is that all?" "You abandoned us after hide and seek," he said. Instead of facing him, I turned and continued walking, keeping my pace slow as I admired every window. Mom was changing the curtain color again. "It might come as a surprise to you, Johnny, but we actually have a life outside playing with our cousins." "So what were you doing?" he demanded. "You were missing for weeks." "Working," I said, my voice cracking slightly. I couldn't help it. I squeezed my eyes shut, swallowing the resentment, the hatred, the jealousy that burned me from the inside out. "We were working, Johnny." He let out a sudden hiss. "Why do you keep doing that?" I didn't turn around. "Doing what?" "We were working, Johnny. You've been here 1,000 times, Johnny. Stop asking so many questions, Johnny." He mocked my voice. Stop with the patronizing bullshit. You sound like your mom. Before I could respond, he pushed past me, following the smell of burnt eggs into the kitchen, where Mom was preparing breakfast. It was supposed to be Annie, our maid, but she was absent. Annie knew exactly what my brother and I wanted for breakfast. Pancakes and maple syrup for me, and cereal and orange juice for Felix. Mom was insistent on avocado toast, eggs, and prune juice. I slid into my seat, trying to ignore my brother slumped opposite, mousy brown curls buried in his arms. A few shards of glass still littered the floor from minutes before. Mom wiped them away before Johnny noticed. Felix Vanderbilt, she scolded my brother, no sleeping at the table. Mom flitted around like a frenzied butterfly fixing breakfast. Do you want something to drink? She asked Johnny, who eased into a chair, already spooning cereal into his mouth. Johnny shook his head, eyes fixed on Felix. Peanut butter flakes dribbled down his chin. Ooh, what's going on with Fee? I'm fine, my brother croaked into his arms. He lifted his head, dark blonde hair sticking to his glistening forehead. Shadows pooled beneath half-lidded eyes, cheeks pallid and hollow. His breakfast sat untouched. Felix hadn't eaten in a while. Felix Vanderbilt used to be the joker of our little group, always laughing, side by side with Johnny. He was the heart of summer. My brother was the heart of all of us. Now it was like my brother's soul had been sucked away. I could tell by the horrified look in my cousin's eyes this was obvious. Felix managed a smile at Johnny. Hey man. Johnny raised a brow. Hey man, he hissed. That's all I get, hey man, and what's with the weird robot voice? Felix straightened in his seat, and by default, so did I. Good morning. Johnny. Johnny dropped his spoon, eyes widening. Have you been possessed? Where's the handshake? Where's the fuck you? Why are you actually eating the shit you hate? He gestured to my brother's plate. Dude, doesn't avocado make you sick? He turned to me, eyes wild. Is this some kind of joke? Am I being pranked? Johnny, Mom sang politely, refilling my apple juice. She didn't reprimand him because he was a golden child. No cursing at the table. Usually my cousin had manners in front of adults, and even if he slipped up, it would be swept under the rug anyway. Kids like him could get away with things like that. But today, he looked my mother straight in the eye and said, Aunt Carla, what the fuck is wrong with your children? Mom surprised me with a delicate laugh, but didn't reply. I'm serious, and Johnny was serious. His gaze stayed locked on Felix, who was staring into space. I kicked him under the table, but he didn't react. Johnny leaned across the breakfast spread, prodding my brother, who shoved him away instinctively. Felix didn't blink. I think he was supposed to, but it's like he forgot how. Did they go through something traumatic? He asked Mom. Johnny snapped his fingers in Felix's face. Cause you look like you've seen some shit, bro. He wobbled on his chair, leaning forward to check my brother's temperature with the back of his hand. Did something happen last summer? You just disappeared for like 4 weeks. Johnny, Mom cut him off with a wide smile. They're fine. If you must know, the two of them were working over the summer. They don't look fine, he shot back, grabbing a slice of toast from Felix's plate. He took one bite, grimaced, and subtly spat it into a napkin. They look like zombies. Well, why don't you all have a chat? Mom hummed, filling his glass with orange juice. When she set it down in front of him, Felix suddenly snapped out of his haze, snatched the glass, and downed it in one gulp. Johnny noticed, but said nothing. He sat back on his chair, arms folded, glaring at the two of us. I thought Mom would stick around. Instead, she kissed me on the forehead, then Felix on the cheek, ruffling our hair. I'm going for lunch with a client, she announced, grabbing her bag and keys. You kids have fun, all right. Bye, Mom, Felix and I said in unison. Johnny rolled his eyes. The door slammed behind her, her heels click-clacking down the driveway. Johnny leapt from his chair. Okay, SO, he announced, climbing onto the counter. Who shit in your cereal? I stood up, taking my plate to the sink. I told you we were working. Okay, but doing what? Johnny hissed. You can't just say I was working, with zero context, then come back acting like you've been clockwork oranged. Look at Felix. You can't tell me he hasn't been completely mind-fucked. I bit back a frustrated yell. You're overreacting. My cousin bounced on his heels. Okay, so you were working. That's what you said, right? So what? A cafe? The beach?
Subscribe for next part. Ha 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 ha.